looking forward to talking on this mic. How's it going, everybody?
Hey.
So I have a little different arrangement tonight. Coming back from Utah, I've really not settled into home a whole lot before going back into work. And so I'm using the crappy built-in web camera on my iMac. But the plus side is I'm talking through this again, which I like the sound of this a lot better. I think I have a little more radio in my voice if I talk through this. So how's it going, Mike? What's
All right, man. All right. Well, tonight's going to be a big night. We were joking just before we started the show. I said, I think I'm going to interview Jamie on Mirrorless Minutes because I want to hear about the trip.
Oh, yeah.
You guys can, I've got some stuff that I can fill in here and there. I took a great trip out to San Francisco and did some Alcatraz stuff and thought I was going to be looking at prisons and ended up in a flower tour. I don't know how that happened, but I had no idea, and maybe a lot of people know this, but how many gardens are on Alcatraz Island. It's just amazing, the gardening that goes on there, and it has been for almost 60 years. And the prisoners, and I didn't even know this. Did you know that families lived on that island when the prisoners were there? Like
no, I did not.
All the deputies and all the people that worked in the prison, there were there with kids, and the kids got on the boat every day to go into San Francisco for school and come back. And
wow. Okay.
I mean, right outside the gates of Al Capone and all these guys.
Dude, that is crazy. What a weird life that would have been to be those kids.
And they have, and because they're about my age now, or a couple of years older, and they're all come back and do talks there. And they, I was watching a video of one of them. They're saying it was the greatest life they've ever had.
Wow.
Living there alone and the boat ride every day. I'm thinking, I can't imagine any kid doing that today.
No, I don't think so. Definitely not.
Yeah.
So I guess we can I want to talk about the workshop. While it's still extremely fresh in my mind, I have a face for radio. Thank you, Steve.
Isn't that nice?
Wow.
Well, you can, our fans are great for just saying.
Our fans are honest, unfortunately. So a little bit about the workshop. I think if anybody who's watching or listening to this had heard about the workshop that I was going to be doing in Moab, focused really on Arches National Park, and I was doing that with my other workshop partner, who's not on this show, Mark Miller. I tend to do the more outdoorsy, like nature-y kind of landscapey stuff with Mark, and then if we're going to be doing anything in a city setting, I'm always definitely with Mike. I tend to hang out with the subject media experts in that regard. So we ran a multi-day workshop, home base in Moab, and focused on Arches National Park. And then we did hit a couple of stops outside of the park as well. Great experience. So great that I'm definitely doing another workshop there. I think next year. That's my goal. If everything, home life is good, then my thought is I really want to do 2 there. So what I'm thinking about doing is maybe flying out and spending like 10 days or 12 days out there, and then running 2
months.
Yeah, right. I know. Good Lord. I'm literally just going to be, spending my life away from home doing these things.
Yeah.
Hey, Amy. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. It was so successful. I think everybody had such a good time, and the images coming out of these that I'm going to share tonight from the attendees are so incredible. I think when people start seeing what came out of that workshop, they're going to want to sign up for next year's workshop. And I think it'll be a little different next year. I think I might do one in Arches again, just because what I'll share tonight and what I will, share with the public about this event, will be focused on Arches, but I think that I'll do a secondary workshop, maybe outside of Arches, and look at Canyonlands or somewhere further away, Zion or something. We'll see. But it was a profound experience to be there. I'd been in the area a long time ago in the 90s, not as a photographer, just as a young kid. And I don't remember it being like that. I think a little age kind of changed how I look at things, and becoming a photographer definitely changed my perception as well. And it moved me, and I want to go back, and I want to bring people with me. I want to share that with other people because it is beautiful. So,
well, I've got some questions in my mind that I want to ask.
Yes, knock yourself out. Hopefully,
I think this would be a good. This is a good segue to say, hey, if you are doing another workshop, what are some of the things that happen there? So tell me, like, what are some of the things? Obviously, you planned this thing. Maybe everybody doesn't know that how much planning goes into these things, and that's every workshop. Pittsburgh, it doesn't matter. But I know you were planning this thing for, I mean, literally.
I mean, we started last year talking about it.
Yeah. And through all the other things. But what are some of the things that you didn't expect you would see right off the bat? Like, you knew you were going to see great stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So some of the things that I wasn't expecting the scale of things. I really wasn't. I've seen a lot of big things. I've been in the mountains, in British Columbia and in Colorado and in Utah, and being in the mountains is one thing, but to see these stone structures that are they're precariously balanced and they're almost comically large how big some of this stuff is. I honestly, I just wasn't prepared for how big everything was and the access to it as well. So there's some things to note about that environment out there. There's this, it's a special soil. They call it cryptobiotic soil. It's almost like a coral in a way. So you've got this combination of lichens and moss and algae, and they all form this crust on the soil, and it's very delicate. And you have to be very aware of where you're walking, because if you step on it, you can damage and kill it. And it can take years and decades for it to return to its former state. And it's very important for helping prevent erosion. It actually holds the soil together. So, I mean, I knew that going into it. That's part of the research is you learn all these things that you need to, as an instructor, be able to tell your class, to teach them about. So it was one of the things we had to teach. We had to teach about that. We also had to just make people aware of, just what to look for when you're walking, as far as where you should be stepping. The cryptobiotic soil is one thing, but then just teaching people, hey, look for where the rain is running down. It creates these washes. That's a safe place to walk because there's none of that, that special soil there, and just weird little things like, don't touch the cactus because ouch, they will poke you like right through your pants, so there's all kinds of crazy things like that. But again, to me, the biggest, most profound thing was just, maybe it's my age, maybe it's what I grew up watching on television, but it was comical. Brian Bright, one of the attendees, said it best. I don't know if it was him or if it was his wife that made the comment, but one of them mentioned that it's like driving into the set of the Flintstones. That's how it looks.
I was just going to say, I wonder if it's like that or being with a Roadrunner.
Yes. And that was another thing that somebody had mentioned. Might have been Seth had said that. So the drive into Arches, there's this massive, massive boulder that's, again, just perched on this little outcropping. And you almost expect to see the Wile E. Coyote with his back against the wall and his feet trying to push that out into traffic. It's literally that comical to see, but at the same time, it's really awe-inspiring and almost overwhelming to be there.
And you've, and not that it's formations, but you've been inside the middle of New York City, and you've seen size of some pretty massive buildings.
Exactly.
Look at that, and you realize that it's a little different.
And it's funny too, because there were a lot of conversations, among the workshop attendees about, many people didn't know just how this came about, how this came to be, these formations. A lot of people didn't realize that this was underwater at one time. So just watching the heads explode a little bit when you start explaining to them, this was underwater and this is all erosion and this is how this happened. My dogs are going crazy downstairs, so I apologize for the barking. I think my son ordered pizza, so if you can hear him, I apologize.
So no sharing, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I don't eat pizza anymore. It's part of my journey.
Steve just threw a great question, and that was one of my questions.
Yes. Okay. So Steve,
equipment for sure,
so equipment required for one of these workshops. I'll talk specifically to what Arches was, but naturally every workshop's going to be a little different as far as what we would recommend for equipment. But for Arches, I told people one of my first rules is to always tell people, bring what you're willing to carry. If you're a pack mule and you want to bring everything you own and you can do that comfortably, just do it. Go for it, because you're going to have everything with you and you're never going to miss a single thing. But I just recommended to to go with something that was like a moderate telephoto, because some of these things are off in the distance. Some of the backdrops are just astounding. And you want to be able to reach out. So you're going to want something with a zoom. So I packed the 40 to 150 f2.8. You're going to want something that is wide, as wide as you can get, because that makes for a lot of fun putting things in the foreground, as you'll see in some of these photos I shared. So for me, that was the 7 to 14. You're going to want a tripod. And I say the tripod because probably not for street photography unless we're going to do things at night where it's long exposure. But here, definitely, we went out for sunrises and sunsets. And while the light is bright and great, tripod not necessary. But once it starts to darken up, you're going to want to have that, regardless of how good the image stabilization is in the cameras. It's always nice to have some sort of extra set of stabilization. And then, I did a lot of bracketed shots as well. So tripod for this, you're going to want a medium telephoto. You're going to want something ultra wide. And then from there, just bring things, as far as lenses go, things that you just want to learn with or try something new with. So like an 8mm fisheye would be great. If you had one of the primes that gives you a shallow depth of field, that would be a good thing to bring to for subject isolation. And then the last thing is going to be, I suggest filters. You can't go wrong with filters. They really came in handy here. I feel pretty bad because one of the sponsors, Nisi, kind of dropped the ball and didn't get anything to us like they did for our Upper Peninsula workshop. So we had we passed around our filters once or twice to people to kind of get a feel for it. But, bracketing kind of helped a lot with that too. So you didn't have to have the filters, but the lenses you're going to shoot with, the lenses you want to learn with, some filters and a tripod were probably ideal for this workshop.
Definitely. But I think we hit every workshop, even the ones we'll do in Pittsburgh, because we will have street, we'll have architecture, but we're saying the same things. And, maybe we're not doing the 40 to 150, but in some cases in Pittsburgh, I think I actually want to bring that because of the mountainous looks into the area.
Sure. Definitely.
I think but the first method is, what can you carry? Because, brings me to the next question is, so did you really go on this 28-mile hikes to get back there? Or?
No. I know that some participants probably felt like some of the walks were that long. The longest walk one way was 1.38 miles. That'll be the first photo that I share. If you followed along, if you follow me on social media, you probably saw me at that location, and that's Delicate Arch. That is 1.38 miles, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, I might have this wrong because I got the information from somebody sitting up at Delicate. I thought that they said it's a 500-foot elevation change. So 500 feet doesn't sound like a ton.
Oh, but it's
over the course of 1.38 miles. But what you're looking at is you're looking at a grade. It's pretty much steady. You're uphill like all the way. And, that was pretty rough. Some of the people backed out from that. We had it in the itinerary, so people kind of knew it was coming. And I think that those that weren't comfortable with it just kind of hung back. And I know that Megan and a few other people went and shot Park Avenue, or not Park Avenue, oh my gosh, I can't even remember now. Courthouse Row, something like that. I'm totally flaking out here. They had another location that they had kind of went back and shot, and it was the end of the day anyway. So I think people were kind of getting a little drained at that point. But for the most part, Arches is a really accessible park. A lot of it is super easy to get to, short walks. You just have to be prepared. That was something that I wasn't ready for. I've spent time in the mountains a decent amount, and I've spent a little bit of time in like the desert, but not elevation and mountain together. So what you find is that, courthouse towers. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for that. It's just been a long day. But what you find is that you go through water fast. I drank a lot of water, and it was perpetually felt like my lips were burning. Like it was just, it was anything you could do to just stay hydrated. So something for any workshop, bring a water bottle. I had a water bottle with me. Our good friend Vicky got me a Hydro Flask, and that goes with me everywhere because it keeps stuff cold all day. So I had that thing topped off constantly. We made sure that we had, cold bottles of water in the back of our SUV for everybody as well. But man, you really need to stay hydrated on not just at a desert event, but any kind of event. So that's something that I didn't say you should bring at first, but you probably should bring a water bottle at all times.
Yeah, for sure. I think that goes for anything, even when you're in the street.
Yeah.
Definitely think that. So what are some other things like safety wise? Did you guys run into anything? Are you talking about not touching stuff and that, but from, I mean, I think people sometimes, and I got this question when you guys were out there, is did you have to be a certain athletic ability to actually do these workshops? And I wouldn't say you have to, but
no, and I'll tell you what. So we had a few people that definitely proved that point. Everything that we did up to Delicate Arch was, I would say, really accessible. The age range from our workshop group was probably the youngest person I'm going to guess was Seth, and he's like, early 30s. Right. And then, we have people all the way up to 72 or 73 years old that were out doing this. We chose arches just for that because everything is really accessible there, save for Delicate Arch, which is definitely a walk. And we did hike back to a couple that were, when I say hike, I just mean it was a longer walk, but not like necessarily a hike. And one of those was Broken Arch. And that was, I think, like 1.1 miles, maybe. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was a little bit of a walk. But again, that was where the being, prepared by having water and things like that, because it did start to warm up at that point in time. I'm getting spam phone calls. Oh my gosh.
Oh, okay. I got one too, actually.
Oh my gosh, and I went to hang it up and I actually just answered the phone. But this has been a hell of a show so far.
How about like night stuff? How much did you do at night? Because I did see some people talking 4 a.m. and stuff.
Yeah, so we had a really long night one night. I don't think I got to sleep until 4:30, and I was back up at 7:30 again to rock and roll. That night was astounding. The skies are so dark out there. We had a little bit of glow from Moab, but aside from that, it was a great night for that. It was so beautiful. And what's funny is you get out there and it's 2:30 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and there are a ton of people out there with cameras set up shooting. I mean, you have to go into understanding that you're not going to own this place. It's a national park. Thousands and thousands of people are going through there every single day. And some of them are just like you, and they're going to want to hang out and shoot at night. So you have to kind of work around that. I know that there were things that we could have done that would have pissed people off, but we had the right to do them because we were permit holding workshop instructors. We could have light painted the rocks, and we chose not to, just out of respect for the fact that, we had a group of 10 people and there were like 50 or 60 people there. We did luck out where we were shooting, though, in that this was balanced rock where we were shooting the Astro. And just the way that it's set up, when you're coming, if you're leaving the park, you're coming up this road and you're coming uphill, and your headlights will actually illuminate balanced rock. And you'll see that, I believe, in one of the photos tonight. Yeah. So it actually perfectly illuminates it. So it works out not too bad. You just have to be patient and understanding and realize, you are sharing this place with a lot of other people. And the same goes for the arches during the day. Everybody wants to have a shot of the arches with no one in the photo. And, you just have to be patient. You have to understand you might sit there for a half hour and wait for that opening. Or in the case of Delicate Arch, I was really impressed with how everybody acted there. People would run up and stand underneath the arch. I didn't. I probably should have. I should have got a photo of myself, but I didn't. But people would run up in the arch and, do their little pose or their yoga pose or whatever they were doing. And then they'd hurry up and run out of it so that people could shoot it with nobody in it. So, the people that were there were really nice and courteous. And it was really an overall good experience how it all worked out.
Wow. Man. I mean, that is just, it sounds amazing. There's no doubt in my mind. But
I'll tell you something weird that I found crazy to me. You would be hiking up to Delicate Arch and you would come around. You kind of like have to walk on this path up against like a rock face, and you come around the bend, and there it opens up out, and you can see Delicate Arch, and you can see the 200 other people that are there to shoot it at sunset too. And then you get up there, and then all of a sudden your phone just starts blowing up with notifications. We had 4G LTE coverage in the most remote, obscure places ever. So
I wondered about that with you doing those damn live things.
Yes. I was going to say, if you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw a live stream from some pretty remote locations. And, leading up to those on the road, there was nothing. And then you get out in nowhere, and all of a sudden it's like what do they have, like a tower hidden in a cactus, just Instagram from this spot, you know. It was, but it was convenient so that I could at least share with people, you know, the locations that we were at, what they look like, what the experience of being there was like, and it was fun to be able to do that.
That's excellent. That's well, we've definitely talked a lot. I'm ready to see some pictures.
So I'm ready to share some pictures. So I'm sharing a selection of pictures that I just randomly chose from some of the workshop attendees. So I apologize. Thank you, Shelly. I loved doing the live streams for everybody. That's kind of my thing. So these are just randoms that I pulled from the workshop attendees, and I apologize if it's not the one that the attendees wanted shared necessarily. They're just ones that I kind of liked. So this first one is from Brian Bright, and Brian is an animal. So he did the hike up to Delicate Arch. Like I said before, it's a long, steep hike, and Brian had just had foot surgery, and he made the trek up it. But Brian is the kind of person as well, which a lot of our workshop attendees are like this. They will go that extra mile like Brian did last year in the Upper Peninsula. We did some hikes. We did some mean hikes up there, and Brian muscled through them. And when he got to those locations, he's like, oh my gosh, this is why I did this. And it was the same way up there at Delicate Arch. You come around the corner and you see the arch and you're like, this is why we're doing it. So again, this is Delicate Arch. And what's funny that you can't see in this, that you would have seen in the live stream, is that to either side of Brian, there's probably 50 or 60 people on each side of him, all either sitting there with their phones out, taking pictures, sitting there just enjoying it, or, you know, with a bigger camera set up, taking photos. It was a beautiful, beautiful night. And I really couldn't have asked for a better last event, you know, like last big arch event, you know, to do there. So it was a great time. And I just want to say thank you to Brian for going that extra mile, literally that extra 1.38 miles to get the shot. You know, it was great to have him there. The next shot is by David Black. Brian is from Michigan. David is from Indiana. So, you know, go Midwest. And David, like Brian, did a drive out there. So they got to see a ton of stuff on the way. And it was fun watching David go through all these different locations. And it's cool to see how everybody has a different scene. Like most people, I think we're focused on in this area. This is Dead Horse Point. You almost have this horseshoe bend in the river that's down in the valley. And I like that David kind of focused in on specific areas of the scene out there. Instead of going and just trying to do like super widescreen and take in everything, he started focusing in on all these different details in the scenery. And, you know, it's one of those things where you come back and you start thinking, man, you know, I should have watched a little bit closer to what was on the back of his camera, because I wanted to do that too. I like that he did that. So it was great to see that work come from him. This next one is from James Saxon. He's a new Olympus user. He switched from Nikon to Olympus. And I was with a friend at the butterfly exhibit in Grand Rapids shooting butterflies. And I get a call from a gentleman from Texas who's interested in going on this workshop. And he was hoping that he could learn how to use his Olympus camera to learn how to get the most out of it, because it was new to him. And one of the things he really wanted to learn was live composite. So this was at Balanced Rock. And we kind of broke the group up into a couple of different clusters of people. And he was with Mark Miller that night. And Mark took them around to the other side of Balanced Rock so they could get this shot, so they could be facing north. The majority of the general population were all on the south side so that they could get the Milky Way as it came over it. But we had been there for quite a while waiting for it to rise. Mark knew enough to get them over there before the Milky Way comes up. We have time to kill. So he brought James over there with another group of people, Brian Bright and a few others, and they did some long exposures. And what I like about this is what I hate about every other astro shot that I do sometimes. He's got a jet going through the middle of this scene. And it's crazy to me that that jet lines up 100% perfect with the North Star, like to the point where it's almost like insane, like a 1 in a trillion shot. And normally I take jets out of my photos. And after reviewing his at our condo, when we were doing kind of like the post-processing and review stuff, I told him, man, I love the jet in that shot, because you let it go long enough to actually bisect the entire scene.
I know it looks like it's on an axis or something.
It is, dude. It is so perfectly on the North Star. You got to see the full size thing. It's mind blowing to me that he got that like that. So Yeah, I'm totally pumped with that. And they did light paint this, I think, with their headlamps.
Mhm.
And I know when they did that because somebody on the other side of the rock yelled, "Turn off the lights." Not everybody's as polite as our group was.
Yes.
This next one is from our friend Karen Martin. Karen came all the way over to our workshop, and you don't even know how excited I was to see that she was using the art filters when she was shooting. It's one of those things that people just don't do for one reason or another. I don't know why. I think you're kind of missing out and doing yourself a disservice to not try all of the features in your camera. And this is a great example of that. And this was at Turret Arch during a sunrise. If I'm not mistaken, that's where she shot that one. And so it's funny because everybody was turned around facing the arch shooting, and she's facing the exact opposite direction where the clouds are kind of moving in and, really even more dramatic. And she shows me the back of her camera. She's like, I just love using dramatic tone. And I'm like, now I know why. Now I know why.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I know Karen very well. She's been on a few of mine, and I get to shoot with her when I go to Arizona. That shot just screams to me.
Yeah.
Like she just loves that style doing that. And it does. I agree with you. It's amazing.
And Glenna said she loves the miniature art filters. And you're probably talking about the one that the tilt shift one. That is fun too. And that's something I didn't use out there that I should have, because that is the perfect place for that. I need you guys all out there to remind me sometimes of some of the things.
Oh, I agree with that.
Yeah. So this next one is shot by Megan. And so Megan kind of noted in this that she liked having the people. And of course, Megan shoots straight. So it makes sense. And I think somebody was poking fun at her while we were out there asking, where are all the people at in your photos? And but this is the thing. This is what is so critical about what she did. The people give scale. Look how small that guy is. And there's a guy behind him. You can only see half of him. This just shows you the immensity of the scene. Everything there is so big. It's almost overwhelming to figure out how to convey that. And me, normally, I'm the person who's cloning everybody out of a shot in a landscape. I'm like, get out of my scene. This sucks. I didn't take anybody out of a scene ever on any of the shots. I didn't take that many shots this trip, but none of my shots that actually had a person in them, I won't take people out, because it definitely adds to that sense of scale. And sometimes it's just good to have a human element in there.
Oh yeah.
Yes, Steve. These are definitely shot with wide angle lenses. Yes. Yeah. So I don't know for certain what Megan had on this, and she's not in the chat room. So I can't ask for sure. But my feeling is 7-14, and I think the same with Karen's as well.
I think Karen's is for sure.
I think James Saxon's, if I'm not mistaken, was 12-100. David Black's, I'm guessing, I'm going to just throw out a guess and say it was either 12-100 or 40-150. Brian's, I don't remember what he was shooting with up there, but the focal length, based on what I remember from sitting up there, he's probably at about 40 millimeters or something. So it could have been, say, like the 12-40, maybe. And so here, this shot's by Susan Christner, and I just have to say, she's not an Olympus user. You don't have to be an Olympus user to come and shoot. We had a couple of Sony shooters out there, and it's cool to get around people that shoot. Thank you, David. David's was the 12-100. Good deal. I knew you were zoomed out there a ways. But it's good to get people around other systems, because then you can see what the capabilities of other cameras are. You can see how things look through someone else's lens. It was just kind of a good experience. And this was, again, at Turret Arch at sunrise. And this was another one of those things where you got a student that turns around and looks the other way, and that's kind of what you want to see. You want to see people not looking at the same thing as everybody else. You got to get that different perspective. And, and I talked with Susan earlier about, getting things in the foreground. There was so many twisted dead juniper trees and bushes. There's always something fun to put in the foreground, which this next photo is a prime example of that. This was shot by Susie Powell. She's an Olympus user as well. And this is at Dead Horse Point State Park. And if you look up to the right, you can see that kind of like a cliff face or a rock face right there. There are a lot of people up there. And I got set up. Thank you, Brian. So Brian was with the 12-40. I thought it was looked like about 40 millimeters. So at Dead Horse, there are a ton of people up high. And it's easy to get down to where this shot is taken, but there weren't a lot of people down there. And and I had worked with one of the attendees, Michelle. She's the other Sony user at one end of the park. I got her set up, showed her a few different shots, compositions. And once she was set up and shooting, I headed down towards where Brian was at and Susie and Megan. And I hopped over this little stone wall and went down to where this tree is at. And I started shooting this tree and another one, and went back and made sure that I wanted everybody to know it's safe to come down here. I'm not bringing anybody to an area that's not plenty safe. You know, I'm not going to live with that on my conscience. So I got Susie down here and got her set up in this area, and she just started firing away. And you can see, I mean, the foreground definitely tells the story that we're not in Kansas anymore. You know what I mean? This is definitely the Southwest with that just gnarly juniper.
Yeah. Isn't Susie fun? And she's a great person.
Susie is the bomb. She is so fun, dude. I want her on every workshop. She's an animal.
I knew you would like her. I mean,
so okay. First of all, she was like Seth's like buddy, because she rode with us all the time and sat in the back seat with Seth, and those two hit it off like it was hilarious. They're like a couple of kids in the back seat. Yeah, you know. But at Delicate, so I don't know Susie's age. I don't need to know her age. I just know that. I don't know if I've met anyone her age that's as fit and as go get 'em as she is. I could go on and on about her. Walking up to Delicate, I did pretty darn good. I've been doing a lot of exercise and my stamina is high. And her and I were side by side hustling up that, you know, and she's just climbing over rocks and jumping over things. And she was a blast. I'm so glad she came.
Yeah, me too. That's good.
So this next shot is by Ted Pembroke. Ted came on our UP workshop the other year, Mark Millers and I, 2 years ago. Sorry, not UP, but our Northern Michigan workshop. And so Ted come from upstate New York. I don't know what Ted's shooting with here, but I'm thinking it's the 7-14 as well. We had gone to Cove Arch and we're shooting, and just it's funny because once you get in a place, sometimes you get everybody set up, people start shooting. And then you start looking around and realizing that everybody just kind of scattered and they're doing their own thing, you know, but that's good. Those that need the help will definitely talk to you and let you know that they need help. And, you know, I just kind of stick with the people that I know might want a little more guidance. But Ted is one of those people that his work has progressed a ton in the last 2 years. And he's there. He just has a few questions, you know, a few technical things he wants to know. And then he just jets off and makes killer photos like this one. I was super pumped to see this photo show up in our private Facebook group.
That's amazing.
The last two are mine. I didn't shoot as much as I would want to shoot, but I'm not there to shoot. I'm there to teach. But I did manage to sneak off and grab a couple of photos. This first photo was taken before the workshop started, and it was when Seth and I were out scouting the day before. This is shot with the 7-14 on the EM1X, and this is a focus bracketed photo, not stacked in camera, but bracketed. And then I did the blending myself in Photoshop. Yeah, I'm kind of a sucker for things in the foreground. And I can say this much: I don't know what that plan is, but if you touch it, you're gonna regret it. Everything out there wants to kill you. It feels like it's either gonna poke you, burn you, or bite you. And then the last shot, and I apologize, I didn't share anybody else's Milky Way photos, but this is a Milky Way photo from Balanced Rocks, and this is one of mine. This is shot with this is shot with the EM1X, and I believe I have on the 17 millimeter f1.2 maybe on this shot. I have to look at XF again, but this shows you how the rocks light up when the cars come up over the hill and just light up the rocks for you. That's not light painted by anybody there on the scene. It's just from a car passing by. The Milky Way there is pretty badass, you know. I'm just gonna throw it out there. We were there long enough to watch it literally come over the horizon and rise up over Balanced Rock. And this is probably one of the last shots before we all departed there. I sat there with Michelle in this location right here for probably 3.5 hours shooting. Wow. You know, and it was pretty astounding. There were a decent amount of shooting stars. I don't know how I shot this without a jet flying through it, but you know, thank God I did, because man, I hate jets flying through my shots, especially like a Milky Way shot. A long exposure, that's one thing, but Milky Way, I don't want it. cool experience, you know. And
how many, so that last shot for the Milky Way, how many other people were there, not your group?
not in our group. There were probably 35 people, maybe. Yeah. It's a lot of people. It is a lot of people.
So when I did Yosemite, it was like that.
Yeah.
It was it's so awesome and so large. But the people just everywhere.
Right. I mean, Arches was like that. It was busy. It didn't feel, I never at any moment felt like there were too many people at the park until one day we came back in the middle of the day and it took a half hour to get into the park because the line was so long. But once you're in the park, it's immense. You know, you've got plenty of room without people around, so it's not a problem. Glenna wanted to know if anybody did time lapses. So we do actually have 1 or 2 time lapses, and you'll get to see that at some point in time. So you heard me mention my buddy Seth. We brought Seth along to shoot video, so we could get some video and photos behind the scenes, so I can kind of build out some promotional material to get people like you excited to come on the next one. And Seth did a gorgeous sunrise time lapse at the Oregon, and it was just astounding. The time lapse that he did. I can't wait to get the content from him. He's going to build out some things on his own, but he's also giving me all the content as well, so I can build out, you know, some promotional material to share out. But you'll definitely see that time lapse in that. So it was beautiful. And yeah, Shelly, I said that a lot. I said, wow, a lot when I was out there. It was beautiful. Definitely beautiful. Yeah. So I think I don't know what else to say. All I have to say, so Ted said he wandered a little further out there and it's so quiet. Okay. I want to talk about that really quick. So we shot sunrise at the Oregon, and I walked out and I was walking with Ted for a minute, and the next thing I know, I don't hear anything. Ted is completely gone, and I'm all by myself, like in the middle of nowhere. I don't see anybody. And it's the best thing ever to feel like that, to feel like you don't hear cars, you don't hear jets, you don't hear people. Everybody needs to experience that at some point in time. It's so hard to get away from noise. It really is. And that's a good place to do it.
Crazy, but it'd be fun. It'd be a good challenge for me.
You'd like it. I guarantee you'd like it. It's hard to not appreciate it out there.
Yeah, I can see. You know, I almost have to take my wife because she would want to be there so bad.
Yeah, it's.
You know, and then on the flip side, you know, we could do that one and then come right back into New York City the next week and just blow people away by.
You know what that is? That is literally like sitting in a hot tub and then getting out and jumping into a snowbank.
Right, exactly.
It would be a shock to the system. That would be an interesting workshop, though.
The same group of people has to go.
You'd have to. Well, I think San Francisco's closer, so we could actually shoot there and then fly into San Francisco on the same day and just really mess people's heads up.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, but that's all I've got. So I did get a question from somebody via Messenger that said that they were going to tune in tonight and watch, and I don't know if they're out there watching, but they asked if the UP workshop has been announced. I will provide a link actually in the description for this episode, linking to where you can sign up for the UP workshop. And yeah, registration's open for that. And we've got a few people signed up already. So I guess that's it. That's all.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm so glad I didn't. I mean, not that anything I took I didn't like over the last couple of weeks, but I'm really glad we just focused this show on this.
Yeah,
I could tell how mind blowing it was following you guys. And
yeah, it really was.
Even more so when you started telling me. So.
Yeah, and I guess I should throw it out there too. I want to mention that I think over the next couple of episodes, I want to start trying to get people that were on the workshop onto the show. Because we're literally just back, and actually some people aren't even home yet. Brian messaged here that he's streaming, watching the show, and they're still on the road on their way back. So not everybody's gone through their photos. Not everybody's had time to absorb the entire experience. So I think, you know, over the next few episodes, I'd like to drag a few people on here and have them talk about what the experience was like for them. It's one thing for me to say.
Yeah, and I think, you know what, we should probably do that with all of ours. When Pittsburgh comes around, grab a couple and bring them on. And even New York, our New York one with Megan's in 4 weeks from now.
Yeah.
You know, actually, not even 4 weeks. What am I saying? It's less than 4 weeks. Oh my gosh!
It's Saturday. No.
it's less than 4 weeks. It's way. But I agree, it would be nice to just get that experience. And I think although I think can convey it well, I think it's even better coming from somebody that's there.
It definitely is. It definitely is. So, yeah, I really want to do that. I want to bring some people on just to hear their perspective, just for you guys watching, to hear their perspective. That's better that way. So yeah, that's it. Until 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, that's a wrap. That's good.
Yeah. Oh, you know what?
What are you in Philly?
I'm in Philly. Shit.
We might have to, you know what? Because I think I'm in Dallas.
Oh my gosh, we can't do shows, you guys. We're gonna need some alternate hosts to step in from time to time and just run this.
You'll hear when we're gonna do it, I guess. Next, you just hit me. You're in Philly, and
yeah.
I think I'm actually flying at the time.
We suck.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We're true to life.
Yes. Yeah, definitely we are. We're the real deal here.
Job still comes first.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you guys just stay tuned for when the next episode is. We have no idea when it is or where we're gonna be when it happens, but we're gonna have one, and we're definitely gonna have some attendees back on the show as well. So thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for stopping in. Timothy, yeah, you know what? Maybe you need to help on one.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you guys later. Take care.
All right. See ya.